standing on the remains of a substantial Iron Age fort, just a mile or so from the village of Clovelly. Built by the Celts some 2,500 years ago, it was a stronghold to protect their community, livestock and farmland from competing tribes, and later from the Roman invasion of Britain. The fort itself may be buried under the crust of time, but the land is still found and the community remains. Clovelly may survive for 2.5 millennia, but its continued survival is a story of enterprise, devotion, and good fortune. It's significant that the Celtic settlement was built opposite the most accessible and sheltered landfall for many miles along this rugged coast. Protected from Atlantic storms and reached by a water-worn valley, over time, Clovelly Bay became increasingly important. The Celts would have taken advantage of this tidal beach, launching their boats from here to fish the Bristol Channel. 2,500 years later, boats continue to be launched from this beach. But now, not always for fishing.
Start is from Cullen Here's Blue Boat. The finish line is between the start boat and there's a yacht in the harbour with a mast sticking above the wall. That's the finish line.
It's Clovelly's turn to play host for the recent revival of gig boat racing, and every available hand is called upon to haul these classic wooden craft down to the sea. This mainly 14th century dry stone quay serves as a reminder that this spot has been valued for longer than we will ever know. When the valley was first inhabited remains a mystery. The Church of All Saints is built on Norman foundations, and this font is 1,000 years old. Clovelly certainly predates the Domesday Book of 1086. The manor of Clovellia, as it was called in William the Conqueror's inventory, must have been a prized estate, as he gave it to his queen Matilda. Yet despite being established for at least 1,000 years, until 150 years ago, very few people outside the immediate area knew that Clovelly even existed. It was, as it had been for centuries, a little fishing village hidden in a fold of a rocky cliff. By the mid-19th century, early in Queen Victoria's reign, seafaring was central to the life of the village, and the harbour was packed with fishing boats. As many as 12 children lived in a 2-bedroom cottage, the youngest sleeping in the attic on straw or horsehair palaces. The bedrooms were for their parents and the older children. So Supplying wood or coal all year round for cooking was a tiresome but essential undertaking on Clovelly's precipitous street. A living room like this was a rare luxury. Often the only spare room was a fisherman's workshop. The sea gave the villagers a living, but took many lives for payment. The reckoning is never ending. For men must work, and women must weep, and there's little to earn and many to keep, though the harbour bar be moving. There is a tradition of life-saving at sea in Clovelly. It's really essential in these parts, and it still is today. To this humble, rustic village came cleric, social reformer and novelist Charles Kingsley. His father had been the vicar of All Saints in the early 1830s, so where better to seek background for an historical maritime adventure than the village of his childhood, where the way of life was still deeply immersed in traditional seafaring, and where, for the price of a pint of ale, old sea salts would inspire him with lurid yarns of the sea. The village had barely changed since the reign of Elizabeth I, when George Carey, a descendant of the family who had owned the estate since 1370, enlarged the village and keep. In the late 16th century, the legendary exploits of Devon sailors like Raleigh and Drake made England a great naval power and a great trading nation. Clovelly men captured these guns from ships of the Spanish Armada. But Kingsley would have learned that not all their exploits were quite so noble. To the west of the village are centuries-old smugglers' footpaths. They lead to Mouth Mill. Hidden from the prying eyes of the revenue officers and too dangerous for their cutters to approach by sea, nature created Mouth Mill for smuggling. With its fantastic window carved by wind and tide, Blackchurch Rock stands like an ominous warning to all passing ships. Today, these clifftop routes offer some spectacular views, and a few surprises. An opening in the rock and lookout leads to a breathtaking panorama of the sea and cliffs. And angel's wings with its roof supported by carvings. East of the village, Kingsley would have walked the Hobby Drive, built to provide employment for Clovelly men disabled in the Napoleonic Wars. On a route described as a 3.5-mile walk of astonishing loveliness, looking down on the harbour shows how difficult it was for the customs officers to spy on the village. Kingsley's adventure story, Westward Ho, was published in 1855. His portrayal of this little-known picturesque village aroused widespread curiosity. Despite being well off the beaten track, sightseers began arriving to catch a rare glimpse of a fast-disappearing way of life. Fishing was declining, the buildings were decaying, and young men and women were leaving the village. The Industrial Revolution was well underway. Beyond Clovelly's timeless tempo, England was working to a faster rhythm, driven by the steam engine. But ironically, the technological revolution that threatened Clovelly's very existence came to its rescue. The age of steam gave birth to mass tourism, and visitors arrived in ever-increasing numbers. And then came the timely appearance of Christine Hamlin. In 1884, Christine Hamlin inherited the estate from her brother and set about restoring the village. She was more concerned with making the houses habitable and the village a decent place to live than she was with conserving quaint local architecture. So if she took a fancy to a style, she'd find a place for it in her restoration, no matter where her inspiration came from. Number 73, for instance, is embellished with carvings from the German town of Oberammergau. And here and there are Christine Hamlin's very personal touches. Memorials to Queen Victoria and to her nephew John Manners, killed in the Great War. Plaques that bear Christine Hamlin's initials appear on most buildings in the village. They not only mark her tenure as the owner of Clovelly, but also the point at which Clovelly's future was secured. The dates that accompany her initials show not the year of construction, but of her renovation. In many cases, the houses are at least 500 years old. By welcoming tourism, Christine Hamlin rescued Clovelly from decay, but she also protected the community from its effects. She banned motor cars, encouraging the continued use of donkeys and sledges. To this day, every house has a sled, and nowadays, the donkeys carry a lighter load. Balancing village life with sightseers requires even more sensitivity today.
I'm sorry, but do go and enjoy. Yes, thank you very much. There's a lot of places you can look at. Thank you.
I've sat in their dining room several Christmas days to look up and look out the window to see people peering in and actually coming in, you know, just to see if we were real.
Holidaymakers make a vital contribution to safeguarding the village for future generations. Keeping Christine Hamlin's ethos alive continues under her descendant, John Rice. The visitor centre has been deliberately detached from the village, allowing village life to go on in its own unique way in this unspoiled setting. Clovelly could have been very different. It is not all holiday cottages, gift shops, restaurants, and fancy boats in the harbour. It is not managed from afar by a board of trustees. Clovelly is real. Its inhabitants are real. And it has a real life, irrespective of tourism. Zachary Hamlin purchased Clovelly from the Carers in 1738. In fact, only two families have owned the estate since Richard II was King of England, think of that. Clovelly is about respect for history, about tradition, and about community. Clovelly is about 2,500 years of evolution.